Merry Christmas, everyone. It's that time of year where folks are getting festive, and Mariah Carey has long since finished thawing to terrorize everyone who isn't feeling jolly this year. Now, I'm always at least 20% dead inside, why do you think I'm so funny? But I do love Christmas, so I decided to see if I could find any interesting games on Steam where Christmas is a central theme, and I ended up grabbing 5 of them. Here's how that turned out. If you enjoy this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. In Crimson Snow, your girlfriend just got back from a business trip and tells you to cross the street to her place in the middle of a blizzard so you can spend Christmas together. The only problem is that while crossing the street, the blizzard obscures your vision and you enter the wrong house, and then things rapidly go downhill as you're chased by an obsessive woman with sharp teeth and sharper nails. This is a decent horror experience, though I did find it somewhat amusing that a lot of the assets were familiar to me as someone who played many hours of House Flipper. Games using pre-made assets is not a sin in and of itself if you can still string them together into a decent experience, but it does run the risk of making your game bleed into a morass of every other horror game that uses store-bought assets. Still, while the scares are basic and sometimes dip into cheap jump scare territory, I still liked the game, and that there were multiple ways it could end, ranging from your girlfriend accepting your proposal, to her not wanting anything to do with you, straight up dying, or even reuniting with the obsessive ex-girlfriend currently trying to exorcist you out of existence. You can even save that very unwell ex-girlfriend from her seemingly demonic possession if you find all the pages detailing a specific ritual. The atmosphere of being stuck in a house that feels way more expansive than it looked from the outside, in combination with the smothering blizzard, comes off as almost liminal. It feels unreal, and that extends to your stalker. Twitchy horror enemies are nothing new, but I still appreciated the way she moved like a broken marionette, and that combined with her too-perfect appearance morphing into a demonic, toothy grin when she sees you, made her both very funny and extremely disconcerting to look at the same time, so well done there. A colourful, cute and quirky game about a snowman building contest in a world with living snowmen, pumpkin-headed harvest folk, animated skeletons, witchcraft, sentient snow cones, slug people. It's a whole fantasy melange in here. And I will say that this was nice, simple 2D side-scroller with easy controls and a light-hearted story where you play as a mute kid wearing a pumpkin hat. You're at a 10-day festival held by Wham Wham the Snowman Man King, vying for first place to win a brand new shiny Skelter. Only, something seems amiss with this year's prize compared to the last two, and Wham Wham grows increasingly paranoid about it. Also, I need you to know that the theme song got stuck in my head for the entire week afterwards, and by day 5, when the little ice cream guy would say "Wham Wham everybody," I responded with "Wham Wham," so it did not take long for the cutesy quirky nature of the game to worm its way under my skin.
You've made my dreams come true. I am glad that we became good friends. Oh, everybody wham wham. Everybody wham wham.
Okay, listen, I wanted a wide variety of games taking place on or around Christmas, and how could you resist a game titled Santa's Big Sack? You play as Santa's newly hired personal assistant, Rudy Knoll, and I need you to understand right away that this game is extremely unserious. Santa ends up having a Dragon Ball Z fight with Krampus, and you can have sex with Mrs. Claus, who is depicted here as a rockabilly southern belle. It's dumb, crude, and does not take itself remotely seriously, and it made me laugh more than I want to admit. This one definitely has more meat on its bones in terms of the gameplay loop and replayability, since there are costumes to unlock and higher ranks to achieve based on how efficiently you complete each level. You play as a very disturbed individual called Larry, who started out at some kind of convent or religious boarding school, and after one of the nuns forbade him from participating in that year's Christmas party, he heard a voice in his head telling him that there was a knife in the kitchen, and let's just say that if we associate red with Christmas, well, that night got very fucking jolly indeed. 20 years later, Larry still hears that voice, but instead thinks it's his Christmas tree urging him to kill everyone who's been naughty this year, and thus we set out to various levels to strike people from the naughty list, ranging from houses to grunge concerts and leather parties to a whole theater, which is where my appreciation for the game's VHS aesthetic and lovingly rendered box art falls through the woodworm-eaten floorboards, because this fucking level seems to operate on luck alone. See, you need to do your job without being spotted and caught, or else the naughty listers will run for the exit and we can't have that. You restart the level and try again whenever someone spots you directly or sees a corpse and runs. This is fine when there is only one exit. If you can head them off at the pass, then you can just stand in front of their escape route and introduce them to Mrs. Knife. The issue with the cinema level is that there are 2 exits, 3 projector rooms to cover, and people are exiting and entering the building at random intervals. So someone could get extremely lucky and wipe out everyone before another person walks through the door, or they could nearly do it, only for someone to step through the door, see you, and immediately step back out of the door and cause you to fail. Other than that, it's aesthetically interesting, festively disturbing, and darkly funny. If you don't mind an element of chance to your success, I would 100% give this one a go. If you've never heard of Vicera Cleanup Detail, it basically asks and answers the question, what happens after the protagonist survives some horrific event? Someone has to clean it up, obviously, and that someone ends up being you. Pretty much all the maps will have you washing away blood, ash, bug guts, and other indeterminate fluids, along with buffing out the bullet holes in the walls, burning the corpses left behind, and generally just trying to make the place usable again. And there is a standalone version of this called Santa's Rampage, where you're sent to clean up Santa's workshop after the unrelenting stress of fulfilling the Christmas wishes of every child on the planet eventually results in Santa going on a very violent bender complete with knives, guns, TNT, and creative use of disembodied reindeer antlers. Yes, this does mean you're incinerating about 24 murdered elves, and many of them severely or completely dismembered. Merry Christmas! A short wee game about finding cats and balls of yarn scattered around various snowy levels that get increasingly Christmassy. It is a very simple game with nothing to hide. All you do is find cats and yarn, and it is very cute. A wholesome palate cleanser after the darker entries on this list. Overall, when looking for Christmas-themed games, the quality can vary wildly, and a lot of them tend to be hidden object games, familiar puzzle games like Tetris with a Christmas skin slapped on top, or just plain meme-y crap, to be frank. There are a handful of killer Santa-type games, and Christmas Massacre was the only one that didn't look like a loveless asset flip, hinging its success on the novelty of a murderous Santa. Again, as I said for Crimson Snow, there isn't something inherently wrong with using store assets to make your game, but I am going to look at something like Christmas Massacre with its PS1 graphics and neat box art and think they've got something more interesting going on. Well, that's all I have for you, so... What's that? This seems a bit lackluster. Look, the pickings for interesting Christmas-themed games were dismal, so here's some bonus recommendations for snowy or winter-themed games, and remember, just because you've heard of it before doesn't mean everyone has. Time marches ever onward and games aren't marketed forever, so people will inevitably need to be told about them. This is a game where you play as Nuna, a native Alaskan child, as she and her companion Fox search for the source of an eternal blizzard that threatens their home, along the way encountering all manner of figures from Alaskan folklore. It was developed in collaboration with the Inupiaq people, and over the course of the game you can unlock educational videos that tell you more about them and their culture. The game is also narrated in their language, and overall it's just nice to see something different. To see other cultures, folklore, and stories brought to life in this medium is something that should be welcomed, if for no other reason than variety. This is a stealth horror game heavily inspired by John Carpenter's The Thing. taking place at an Arctic research facility where things have gone horribly wrong. The rescue team's helicopter is brought down by a strange flash of light, and you start as a pair of survivors from that team, picking your way from zone to zone as you balance the need for sleep, food, and warmth. You scavenge what you need from the base itself, darting between buildings through the unrelenting blizzard, hoping the next one still has its furnace lit. But exactly what is going on at the base, what happened to the people working here? Well, when you allow the explorers to sleep, unnatural fireflies gather in the room, attracted by the energy given off by humans in deep sleep. And eventually, something much more dangerous will breach into reality. Different anomalies require different rules of engagement. Some are weak to light, some are weak to heat, etc. Dealing with the anomalies runs the risk of inflicting psychological damage on the survivors, however, a milder case being constant uncomfortable giggling whenever you're in control of one. As for what these things are, what caused them to appear, and what lies at the heart of the facility, well, you'll just have to find out, won't you? While this does have an episodic story campaign to it, I imagine most of you who know this game know it best through its endless survival mode as you try your best to stay alive for as long as possible. Plagued by hungry wolves and bears, the ever-present and biting cold, it can be brutally unforgiving. Or, depending on the settings, it can be a peaceful time alone in nature, appreciating the frozen landscape upon which you walk. One particular review of this game gives a much more evocative and experienced view of this game than I could hope to, for which I've left a link below. I'm really just mentioning this on the off chance that someone watching is unaware of it, but Frostpunk is a brutal and unforgiving city builder and resource management game about surviving after the world plunges into an ice age. You run one of the last human settlements, building, expanding, sending out expeditions in search of resources, and making critical decisions along the way because the furnace at the heart of your city must always be lit or everyone dies. And the game will not make that easy for you, because as you grow and expand, the decisions you make can lead people to starve, children can die, sawdust might be mixed into food to stretch it out and make people sick, you'll use children as labor in the coal mines, you'll make brutal examples of people who break the law because you cannot abide anarchy in a situation so tenuous. It is unrelenting. A cutesy little game that is basically Minecraft if it was just building snow fortresses and having snowball fights as adorable little shadow people in fluffy winter coats. Extremely simple, but your mighty snowcrafting is limited only by your patience and imagination. I have very fond memories of playing SSX Tricky for the PlayStation 2. It was one of my favourite things to play, and while the PSP title SSX On Tour still scratched the itch, it wasn't quite what I wanted. The far more grounded and realistic take on snowboarding in the 2011 reboot of SSX left me extremely disappointed because this is joyless. I want whimsical, unrealistic, snowy fun. I want the commentator to roast me when I screw up a jump and eat snow. So imagine my shock when I see this on Steam, a game inspired by the likes of SSX Tricky. Does it measure up to that nostalgic standard?
Ow! Ow, 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 that's gonna leave a mark! Ooh! Did I just hear bones breaking?
You can.
That's a 2 times multiplier. Keep the storm coming. 2 times multiplier. Freaky, freaky, freaky!
It's not perfect, but it's definitely got the spirit. As of right now, it's in early access with only 2 characters and 2 courses, with 3 different modes to play on them. So if you'd rather wait and see if the devs stick with it, that is completely fair. But it does show promise, so I'm choosing to be optimistic. And with that, I bid you all farewell until next year. Thank you for watching, and a special shout out to my supporters on Patreon who are all very handsome people. If you'd also like to be called a very handsome people, check out the link in the description where you can support me for just £1 a month. If you'd rather a one-off to fund my caffeine addiction, I also have a Ko-fi. I have a TikTok where I shitpost about games, and I stream over on Twitch every Wednesday at 8 PM British time. Don't forget to drink your water, take your medication, be kind to yourselves, and I will see you all next time.